वालेकुम सर।
हाँ जी वालेकुम सलाम। हाँ जी, स्क्रीन नजर आ रही है आपको?
यस सर।
So okay, we will start today's new topic. The topic of river survey. So already last time you have covered the river hydraulics, 2 lectures. Now we'll start with a new topic. So in the river survey, first of all, we are going to discuss the aims and framework of river surveys, why it is carried out, what type of data is collected during the river survey, and how the processing and analysis is carried out, and based on that, the formulation of the conclusions. So first, the purpose of river survey, why we have to carry out a river survey. So the first purpose is that we want to gain an understanding of the river's history, its background, that from where it has started, its origin, its upper part, then the middle part and the lower part, and what are its various tributaries, and when it started. So in geological time, whether it is a young river or a mature river. So we want to understand the river's history. Then the second purpose of river survey is that we want to know how this river can serve our human needs. That is, we want to use the river water for agricultural purposes or for domestic purposes or for industrial purposes. So how it can serve our human needs. And the third purpose is that we want to explore the possibilities of controlling the river during the extreme conditions. That when there is flood season, how we can control the discharge of this river, and during the normal flow. So these are the purposes why we want to carry out a river survey. And during the river survey, we collect a variety of data, and based on that data, we process it and analyze it and form our conclusions regarding that specific river. So before we start a river survey, we have to formulate a framework to carry out that river survey. Without a framework, we cannot have an effective river survey carried out. So before carrying out a river survey, the framework should be developed and various factors should be considered in that. So the various factors which we want to consider are like what should be the extent of the area involved, that how much area we want to explore regarding that river. So whether we want to have one specific reach explored or the whole river we have to explore for our research purposes or for carrying out project. Then what type of data has to be collected? So in the framework, we have to decide that while we are carrying out that river survey, what type of data we will be collecting. Like the data to be collected during a river survey can be regarding its discharge, then the water levels, then the sediment load which it is carrying, then it can be the cross section of the river itself, the river bed, whether there is deposition of sediments or whether erosion is being carried out in the river bed. So various type of data has to be collected. And data regarding water quality can also be considered, like what is the biological oxygen demand of the river water, or the chemical oxygen demand, what is the pH value, what is the electrical conductivity of the river water, and so on. So a lot of data has to be collected during that river survey. Then we have to decide regarding the density of measurement points, whether we should taking the data at a single point or more than one point, multiple points. So this has to be decided during a river survey. So this factor should be considered when we formulate a framework for the river survey. Then what should be the frequency of the measurement? At what time we should take the readings or observations, whether it should be on daily basis, on hourly basis, or monthly basis, or seasonal basis. So this factor has to be decided while we formulate the framework for the river survey. Then how much time we have to allocate, whether we have to collect the data for one season or for 1 year. So this has to be decided. Then the timing of the measurements in relation to the regime. So as we know, the river discharge fluctuates during the whole year. So during the low flows, uh, it will be having different characteristics. During the flood season, it will be exhibiting uh, some other types of characteristics. So we have to decide at what time we have to carry out our observations, whether we have to observe this river in all the characteristics which it is exhibiting during the normal flow or the extreme conditions. So this factor has to be decided in the framework which we are formulating. Then what accuracy we require, whether we require uh, accuracy say plus minus 10%, that would be sufficient for our search purposes, or it should be less than that, or it can be more than that. So this has to be considered as well. Then what method we are going to employ to process the data which has been collected during the river survey, whether it would be just statistical analysis or we would be carrying out numerical modeling. So this we have to see and consider while we formulate our framework for the river survey. And एक मिनट दो। So now we discuss what are these river survey requirements. So first of all, we have to define the type of river. So if we are able to classify the river into various classes, then we can have the comparison of similar types. So this will make our task easier if we know that a river is of certain type, and then we can compare it with the same type. So the hydromorphological assessment methods can be then compared for similar types of rivers, and also this can provide us some useful information for managing that river in a better way. So the core information which is required to define a river type, this can usually be derived from the maps or the catchment-wide databases which have already been uh, built or are available for that particular river. So then we can refine the type of rivers when we gather more information during the field surveys or by giving our expert opinion. So through that we can further refine what type of river this river classifies. So uh, some factors have been recommended to be considered for defining the river types. So what are those factors uh, which defines a river type? First of all, the type can be regarding the size of the river. So in the size, it can be regarding the stream order, its catchment size, or the distance from source. So as per the size, we can classify the rivers. Then based on the gradient, this is another factor on which river types can be classified. So gradient is the channel slope. So as per the channel slope, like whether it is steep or moderate or flat, we can classify a river. Then based on the geology, so the geological classification consists of minimum of three categories. So they can be siliceous, calcareous, or mixed, or maybe organic. So based on these categories, we can geologically classify the river type. Then another factor which we use for classifying the river into various types is the geographical location of the river itself. What is its latitude and longitude? And altitude can also be another factor used for classification of river type. So uh, the altitude means the uh, elevation above the mean sea level. Then hydrological regime. What are the various characteristics of discharge patterns? This can be another factor to classify the river into certain types. So these are recommended some factors based on which we can define the river type. So as per the European Union Water Frame uh, Directives, WFD, which gives us some guidance how to classify the river into various types. So here you see a table A in which you see the key factors in the first column and descriptors in the second column. So same factors which we have just discussed, which we use in order to define the river type. So first of all, like say key factor is altitude. So we can classify the river whether it is lying in high altitude, if it is having greater than 800 meter mean above mean sea level, or we can classify it as mid altitude if it lies between 200 meter to 800 meter, and a lowland river if it lies at elevation less than 200 meter. Then size, a factor which we use to classify the river. So size is based on catchment area. If we are classifying based on the catchment area, so we will classify the river as small if it is having a catchment area of 10 to 100 kilometers square. So this we can classify as a small sized river based on its catchment area. Medium, if the catchment size is greater than 100 to 1000 kilometers square. Large, 1000 to 10,000, and very large if it is greater than 10,000 kilometers square. Then geology, so minimum three uh, criteria should be used, whether it is calcareous, siliceous, or organic. Then ecoregion. So ecoregions, they have their own map as per the Water Framework Directive. So based on that, we can classify the river using the ecoregions. So that is for the uh, European Union, but we can have our own ecoregions for our countries at you can say continent level or at national level. Then another system which we use to classify the river types can be the obligatory factors like we have used altitude, latitude, longitude, geology, and size. And the optional factors, they can be distance from source, energy of flow, mean water width, mean water depth, what is the mean water slope, what is the form and shape of main river bed, what is the river discharge category, the shape of the valley, then how it is transporting the uh, sediment load. So various optional factors can also be used. So either we can use system A or system B. So these are the recommendations from the European Union Water Framework Directive. Similar, if we have our own national recommendations, then we can use that. But generally, uh, they will be based on such factors which we have just discussed. Then dividing the river into reaches. So the relationship between the river type, the river reach, and survey unit, it is a fundamental to survey strategy and assessment because we have to first divide the river into various classification, then the various reaches and the survey units. So uh, whenever we consider a river and its catchment, first we will divide that river into river types and then the component reaches. So this division of the into river type or into component is based on some factors, which you see they are listed in table 2. So uh, we note down the significant change in the geology, in the valley form, the slope, the plain form, the discharge, land use, and the sediment transport. So based on these factors, we will divide the river into reaches. Now I will show you a figure how a river is divided into river reaches based on these factors. So here you see a catchment map. This is the catchment of a river. So you see, first of all, number one in the key, you see type A. So we classify this tributary as one type of river and type 2 as another type, which is the another tributary of this river. So they confluence at this point and then they become a single reach. So we have divided first this tributary as one type A and this tributary as type 2. And once they are joined, then we call it as type 3 or type C. So basically, you see the three reaches, the two are the tributaries, and the three, when downstream the confluence. Then the river types, once we have classified, so we will see the various factors in the catchment area. So as for example, you see this number 8, which is a waterfall. So we have marked here number 8 as waterfall. At number 9, you see is a lake. So we identify it as a lake. So the reaches can be for the first river A1. So this is the first reach. Then reach B1. So second reach, and the third reach C1 and reach C2. So the whole river has been divided into 4 types of reaches: A1, A2, then A1, B1, C1, and C2. So then you see at the number 10, you see how the sampling is carried out in a reach. So sampling strategy can be different uh, while we carry out the sampling in a reach. So 3 types can be used. At number 10, you see the survey units within a reach. So you see at alternate uh, units, the surveys are carried out. So we have divided the reach into various strips, और इन स्ट्रिप्स में आप देखें एक छोड़ के हमने सैम्पलिंग की हुई है. But another strategy can be that in the whole reach, we divide it into smaller strips and carry out our sampling. So this will be contiguous survey units, where we take sample in every you can say sub reach, जो हमने sub width, which we have divided the reach into. And at 12, you see, we just take a single sample. So this will be known as a single survey unit. So different types of strategies can be used depending on the funds available. If we have less funds available, we can just use a single survey, 1 point sampling here only. But if we have sufficient funds, then we can go for the other two, the contiguous survey units, where we can carry out sampling in all the strips in which we have divided the reach, or we can go for the alternate sampling in the reach itself. So this depends on our selected strategy. So is this clear? तो चीज अभी इसमें क्लियर ना हुई है. ये क्लियर हो गया कि हमने कैचमेंट एरिया सेलेक्ट किया उस रिवर का, तो उसमें देखा कि कौन सी हमारी जो रिचेज आ रही हैं, डिफरेंट रिचेज में डिवाइड किया, और हमने इनको क्लासीफाई कर दिया रिवर्स को 3 टाइप्स में, टाइप ए, बी और सी में. उसके बाद हमने फिर वेरियस फीचर्स देखे हैं, कोई वाटरफॉल है, कोई लेक बन रही है, और फिर इसमें हमने सैम्पलिंग स्ट्रेटजी डिफाइन की है कि हम कोई भी सिलेक्ट कर सकते हैं आउट ऑफ 10, 11, 12. So this is how the river survey is carried out. For the survey strategy, so we have seen that the reach, it provides the primary framework for survey. जब हम उसको reach में divide कर लेते हैं, and these reaches, they can be characterized hydromorphologically using various survey strategies. As we have seen in figure 1, we can survey it as a in a single survey, in which the entire reach is assessed in a single survey unit, or contiguous survey, where the reach is split into a series of contiguous survey units, or it can be the alternate, the third survey strategy. So now coming to what should be the scale of surveys and evaluations. So the length of a survey unit, it is dependent on the purpose why we are carrying out this assessment, and what is the size of the river itself. कि उस river का जो है वो क्या size है. So if it is a larger size river, then of course we will have more area selected. If it is smaller, then of course small area will be selected. So if we are using contiguous survey, then the survey units, it should be 100 meter, 500 meter or 1 kilometer, or variable lengths can be selected according to the degree of morphological uniformity. So otherwise the recommended are select 100, 500 or 1 kilometer, or by your expert opinion, if you see the same degree of morphological uniformity, then select variable length as per the field conditions. Then the lateral survey boundaries, they need to encompass floodplain features as well as river features. So not only the reach should be covered, but the floodplain on both sides, right and left banks, the floodplain features should also be covered. So this may extend your area, because you are not only surveying the river reach itself, but also you are recording the floodplain features as well. So a standard distance of 50 meter on either side is recommended for all other water courses. So though 100 meter is usually taken, but for the if the river is large, but for other standard distance is 50 meter on either side. So also if you have some other special features, so like the ecological or conservation importance features which are beyond that 50 meter boundary, they should also be included. Like you have some heritage ruins which are beyond that 50 meter width. So those should also be recorded, and these are in the floodplains at a distance more than 50 meters. So where embankments are present, if you have built embankments for flood control, so it does not mean that your survey should only be up to the embankments, but you extend your field survey beyond that embankments, so that all the hydromorphological characteristics of the potential floodplain should be included. So where you see there are embankments built on both sides, so just go beyond that embankments or the bunds itself and record all the hydromorphological features in the floodplains. So also remember that hydromorphological information is to be gathered for both the banks, whether it is the left bank or the right bank, so that when you are making the assessment of the river banks, so it can be carried out separately for each bank or for both banks together as well. Coming to timings and frequency of field surveys. So assessment should be carried out during periods of the year when you can see all the features and you can describe them with confidence. And when it is possible, so this will only be possible when there is low flow, because in low flow period you can observe all the features. Otherwise, in high flow season, all features will not be visible and you cannot record them with confidence. They will be submerged underwater. But during low flow, all the features will be visible and you can record all the features with confidence. But you should be careful that low flow does not mean that when there is no flow taking place in the river. So the low flow means the flow taking place continuously during that period, and it is not stopping or ceasing, and there is no flow present in the river. So the feature should be recorded when at least low flow is taking place. So coming to the frequency of survey, so it should ideally be linked with the rate of hydrometeorological change. So this change can take place after a major flood or a medium flood, or maybe due to the human interventions. What are the changes taking place? Maybe on upstream, you have constructed a weir or a barrage, or some reservoir has been constructed. So the frequency depends what is the rate of hydrometeorological change taking place. So uh, normally the SOPs have been specified that when these field surveys should be carried out, but as a general rule, uh, this river survey should not be carried out longer than 10-year period, because it is a very long period. In a 10-year period, there might be many hydrometeorological changes. So don't wait for period more than the 10 years. So usually, if you can shorten this period, better it is. But due to the you can say constraint of funds, these river surveys cannot be carried out regularly. So at least after a period of 10 years, these should be carried out. So what features for survey assessment should be carried out? So uh, table 3 given the next slide, it gives us a standard checklist of hydromorphological features which should be uh, recorded for the survey and then assessed. So these are grouped within 10 categories, and they cover three broad zones of river environments. That is the channel itself, because that is the most important. Then the zone of the river banks or the riparian zone, and third is the floodplain, the area in which the river spills when it is over its capacity, holding capacity. So uh, these all checklist has been, you can say, based on these three broad zones. So here we will discuss one by one. So first of all, the channel itself. So in channel, what we are looking for, first of all, the channel geometry. So the generic feature is the plan form. So whether it is a straight reach or it is grading or having sinuosity, zigzag feature, this we are looking for. So this should be recorded. Uh, what is the feature regarding the platform? Then the longitudinal section and the cross section. So this is one feature relating to the channel itself. Then uh, we are looking for the substrates, that is the material in which the river is flowing. So the feature can be that whether it can be artificial or it can be some natural substrate type. So artificial substrate or artificial material can be that it is flowing in a concrete or a fixed bed, so or it is a light channel. So where the cross section cannot be changed. So whereas if it is having natural substrate, so it can be having large boulders and cobbles, coarse material like pebble and gravel, fine material like sand, then cohesive like silt and clay, organic like peat, and what is the degree of siltation and compaction. So these are the management or the catchment effects. So this is the second aspect regarding the channel. Then we are looking for the channel vegetation and organic debris. So what type of vegetation is present in the channel? Whether they are emergent, free-flowing, free-floating, or broadly submerged, or bryophytes, or macroalgae. So these, what type of vegetation is present in the channel itself? Then the erosion or the deposition character of the channel. So this we have to see regarding the meanders, the point bars, side bars, mid channel bars, and islets. So what characteristics this channel is exhibiting? Then the channel flow. What are the various flow patterns? Whether it is a free flow, a ripple flow, or a smooth flow. And what are the effects of artificial structures, if there are any, like the groins or deflectors? So flow features we have to record. Then what is the discharge regime present in the channel itself? And lastly, regarding the channel, the longitudinal continuity as affected by artificial structures. That is, if we have constructed some weirs, dams, sluices, or the culverts, then what is the effect taking place? So these artificial barriers, they will be affecting the continuity of flow, also the sediment transport, and other factors uh, which will be disturbing the pattern of the channel itself. So these are all the assessment categories regarding the channel. Then we come to the river banks or riparian zone. So this is the second broad zone which we want to record the features. So in the river banks, we have to see the bank structure and the modifications which have been carried out. What is the bank material composed of? Like it is gravel, sand, clay, or some other material. What type of wetment or bank protection has been carried out? Like sheet piling, stone walls have been constructed, or gabions have been placed. So these all have to be recorded. Then the vegetation type, the structure on banks and adjacent land. So what is the structure of vegetation? What is the vegetation management taking place? Then what is the type of land use, extent, and types of development, whether agriculture or urban development? So this is the second category regarding the river banks. Then the third category or the third zone are the flood plains. So flood plains, the adjacent area. So we have to see what is the adjacent land use and what are the associated features with it. So whether there are forest, agriculture, or some urban development taking place. So this we have to see what is existing in the what features are existing in the floodplains. Then what is the degree of lateral connectivity of river and floodplain and the lateral movement of river channel. So we have to see the embankments and levees. Are they integrated with banks or they are set back from river, the flood walls and other constraining fixtures. And then also we are looking for the continuity of floodplain. So any artificial structure which is partitioning or posing hindrance in the floodplain, so all have to be recorded regarding the floodplain. तो टेबल 3 क्लियर हो गया, कोई चीज जो क्लियर ना हुई है? तीन एस्पेक्ट से हम देख रहे हैं, चैनल, रिवर बैंक्स और फ्लड प्लेन के हिसाब से। सो कौन कौन सी चीजें हमने देखनी है फीचर्स? सो दोज आर डिस्क्राइब्ड इन दिस टेबल। तो कोई पॉइंट जो क्लियर ना हो अभी तक? ओके, ऑल क्लियर? So then coming to the field survey procedure. So depending on the purpose why we are carrying out this assessment, so field survey, it should be preceded or followed by exhaustive use and interpretation of all the historical data which is available to us in shape of the data itself or the maps, or we have information like satellite imageries. So use of remote sensing, we can also make use of that. So before we carry out the field survey, we should uh, gather all the historical data and all the information in shape of maps or the satellite imageries of that area which we are going to have a field survey. So the field survey, it should be carried out by walking along the river bank. So the best way to carry out a field survey is to walk along the river bank. So when you are walking along the river bank, you can see all the features more clearly instead of driving along the river banks and missing many of the features of the river, the channel itself, or the floodplains. So if you walk along the river bank, so all the features you can have clearly recorded. So where you face difficulty, especially the floodplain features on the opposite side of the river, which you cannot see clearly. So that means you have to cross that river and go on the other bank, other side, and then walk along and record all the features. So also you can use a boat uh, so that you can, while traveling in a channel itself, you can record all the features of the left and right side of the river, and also the features of the floodplain itself. So under some conditions, it may be possible to gain access to the channel to record features such as river substrates, that what is the material of the river itself in which it is flowing. So uh, you can have an idea from the river banks itself, but where is it is possible to enter the channel. So you should enter the channel and check the material of the substrate itself. So that will be more authentic instead of just guessing what will be the substrate of the river. So the persons who are carrying out these surveys and recording all the features, they should have a good understanding of the survey method and the familiarity what they are recording. They should know which features they are looking for and uh, what they are recording. So method should be clear to them, and also the features which they are recording. So these surveys should have all the features which are related to hydrometeorological features, and whether they are natural or artificials, they all should be recorded. And not only you produce the detailed descriptions, but actually record what is present uh, as a natural or artificial attribute of that river reach. Then the completed survey forms, they should not only be filled by recording all the features, but you should also take the photographs of the site and the details of the location where you are taking those photographs. So while you will be making a report of your survey, it will be helpful if you have the photographs of the locations, the exact location. You can have a GPS. So GPS can be used to mark the exact location where you have taken these photographs or where those features were recorded. So providing the longitude and latitudes will have more clear understanding of the reports which you will be preparing based on these forms. And in future as well, you can then have a comparison. अगर आपको सही लोकेशन पता है क्या उसका longitude latitude है, so after 1 year or 2 years, if you survey the same area, so you have the exact geo-referencing, and you can then compare what changes have taken place. क्या आज से 5 साल पहले क्या था और अब क्या है. You can overlay those two, you can say, your reports and see what changes have taken place during that period. So that's why it is important to have your instruments like GPS taken with you so that you can record the exact location. So today I will keep it up to here because I have some meeting to go. So then I will be next time finishing the remaining part. So anything not clear up to now, कोई चीज जो समझ ना आई हो?
सर एक सवाल था सर.
हाँ जी.
जो हमने सर आपने पहले अपने लास्ट लेक्चर में जो क्लासिफिकेशन उसमें बताया था उसमें आपने सर टाइप ऑफ बेड मटेरियल के भी हमने पढ़ा था. यहाँ
हाँ
सर
जी.
जो यूरोपियन क्लासिफिकेशन के मुताबिक सर वहाँ डायरेक्टली सिर्फ जियोलॉजी ही मेंशन है. तो क्या ये एक जनरल टर्म था सर उसको प्रेजेंट करने के लिए टाइप ऑफ बेड मटेरियल को?
लेकिन सबस्ट्रेट के हवाले से भी हम रिवर को कर रहे हैं क्लासिफाई ना. सबस्ट्रेट है कि वो मटेरियल जिसमें वो रिवर फ्लो कर रहा है.
जी.
क्योंकि जब अब यहाँ जब रिवर सर्वे की हम बात कर रहे हैं और यहाँ पर जब टाइप डिफाइन करते हैं तो यहाँ पर बड़े डिटेल में चले जाते हैं. हमने देखा कई फैक्टर्स हमें कंसिडर करने पड़ रहे हैं. तो क्योंकि हम चाह रहे हैं कि सिमिलर टाइप्स के जो रिवर्स हैं उनको कंपेयर फिर कर सकें हमें कि ये एक टाइप का रिवर था जिसका सबस्ट्रेट ऐसा था, जियोलॉजी इसकी ऐसी थी, इसका ऑल्टीट्यूड ऐसा था, तो वो हमारे पास एक क्लासिफिकेशन पर आ जाएगी. तो ये ज़रा थोड़ा डिफरेंट आ जाता है. यहाँ पर हम उसको ग्रुपिंग कर रहे हैं. वहाँ पर जस्ट थी कि जो हमने ब्रॉडली पढ़ा था कि कैसे हम उसको क्लासीफाई करते हैं, लेकिन ये है रिवर सर्वे के वाले से. जब हम रिवर सर्वे के वाले से टाइप्स क्लासीफाई कर रहे हैं ताकि हम फ्यूचर में इनका कंपैरिजन कर सकें कि इस टाइप के रिवर जिसमें बेंचमार्क फैक्टर्स हैं उनको कैसे कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. तो ये ज़रा डिटेल स्टडी आ जाती है. तो क्लियर हो गया पॉइंट?
यस सर.
हाँ, वो तो सिर्फ आप कहने के वो मैंने आपको बताया था कि क्लासिफिकेशन के तो बहुत से मेथड्स हैं, लेकिन कुछ जो है बड़े लूज टर्म्स हैं, लेकिन कुछ बड़े आपको लगता है कि फिक्स्ड चीज़ें हैं जो कि होनी चाहिए. लेकिन यहाँ जब हम सर्वे के हिसाब से देख रहे हैं तो हमें बहुत से फैक्टर्स देखने पड़ते हैं, फिर हम उनको कह सकते हैं कि ये एक टाइप का रिवर है और इसको हम फिर कंपेयर कर सकते हैं किसी और इलाके में अगर उसी टाइप का रिवर है, क्योंकि मोर देन वन फैक्टर को हम उसके बेसिस पर हमने इसको क्लासिफाई किया हुआ है.
So can we call river substrate as the bed material?
Yes, you can call it as because it is the material in which the river is flowing. कि रिवर किस में फ्लो कर रहा है, किस टाइप के मटेरियल में. सो वो बेड का और बैंक्स का अगर एक जैसा ही है तो वो एक तरह से वही सबस्ट्रेट ही है. सो अमूमन जो आपका बेड मटेरियल है उसी के अगर बैंक्स भी हैं वही मटेरियल के जो डोमिनेंट है, तो इसका मतलब है कि वो सेम सबस्ट्रेट में फ्लो कर रहा है. तो बेड लोड तो ट्रांसपोर्ट के वाले से हम फर्क चीज़ को कहते हैं कि बेड मटेरियल एक्चुअली क्या है. तो टेंडेंस